Good morning, everybody. My name is Ashnik Rivan. I'm with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, and I'd like to welcome everybody to the remote VIP dealer and dismantler training workshop. Before we begin with the formal training, I'd like to start off with some introductions, have some teammates, panelists on with us that I'd like to introduce. We have Ms. Vicki White, who's a Technology Implementation Manager, Cynthia Ravenstein with the MSRC, Cynthia Snyder, who is our Administrative Assistant for the VIP program, and let's see, and I'm Ashnik Irvine, you guys already know me. So real quick, I just want to make sure you guys understand that, or you have registered for this workshop if you're attending this, and you've already received an RSVP confirmation, and when you've logged in, you registered with the same RSVP email address and info that you did. This way, it'll ensure that we have you accounted for and you get credit for completing this required training. And I'm going to go over some housekeeping remarks that we'd like to provide to everybody. So bear with me real quick. Okay, here we go. So good morning. Thank you for participating in our remote VIP training workshop for dealers and dismantlers. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth workshop with public participation. We ask that everyone be patient as we navigate this together. We have two formats for participation, the Zoom web application as well as teleconference. Before we begin, I want to review some guidelines and general instructions for the workshop. These are very important, so I ask that you pay close attention. Please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we're not hearing any feedback or causing interruptions during the workshop. During the workshop, all participants on Zoom, except for South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute by the host. That means that you will not be able to mute or unmute your lines manually. Throughout the presentation, the host will ask for any questions. For those on Zoom, if you would like to ask a question on the Zoom screen, please click on the raise hand button. This will signal to the host that you would like to ask a question, and you will be prompted to ask your question. If you're using Zoom on your smartphone, please tap the raise hand button on the bottom of the screen. For those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. Your name will be called when it is your turn to ask a question, and the host will unmute your line automatically. Please note, you can hang up or leave the Zoom meeting at any time. However, I encourage you to stay for the whole thing if you'd like to get credit for attending the workshop. In terms of decorum, please adhere to the speaker time limit, treat others with courtesy and civility, and respect the public meeting process. Profanity, discriminatory comments, or obscene gestures is prohibited. Disorderly, unruly, or aggressive behavior that infringes upon the right of others or disrupts the good working order of the workshop is also prohibited. Any violation of the above rules can result in your mic being muted, your video feed shut off, or you being dropped from the phone or Zoom meeting lines. Okay, so we're going to get started with the workshop. I'm going to be referring on the email that we sent for the RSVP confirmation. We sent out several handouts, and I want to make sure you guys have that readily available because I will be referring to a few of them throughout the presentation. So I would encourage you to have them nearby if you don't have them already. Next slide, please, Paul. Okay, so this is our general agenda for today. We're going to start with some introductions and program overview and progress, and continue with the dealer requirements training, and followed by the dismantler requirements training, and with questions and comments. I do want to point out, since this is through the Zoom format, I am planning on stopping at several key slides and allowing an opportunity for questions. So there's I've set aside about 6 places throughout the presentation that we're going to stop and entertain questions. Should you have additional questions after those key spots, you're more than welcome to ask them at the end of the presentation. Okay, next slide, please. Slide 3. Okay, the program overview. The goal of this program is to reduce emissions from in-use heavy-duty trucks in small fleets by replacing older vehicles with models that are 2013 emissions model year compliant or newer. Outreach is primarily done through CARB and South Coast AQMD. However, dealers and dismantlers are expected to inform customers about VIP program and provide accurate information about this program. Dealers and dismantlers play a very critical role in the VIP program. And I've always said this at every year that we have a VIP training workshop. In my opinion, VIP, in addition to standing for voucher incentive program, I believe it also stands for very important partnership. We all work together in adhering to the program guidelines, and we want to make sure that dealers and dismantlers are assisting applicants with their applications and helping us achieve program goals, and most importantly, maintaining program integrity and ensuring that a correct and consistent message is happening. Often there are misinformation that may be communicated from one person, one individual to another, and we want to make sure that we're maintaining the consistency of information so that there's no misunderstandings on anyone's part, whether it's participant, dealer, dismantler, or South Coast AQMD. Next slide, please. So the voucher incentive program is currently limited to owners and operators with fleets of 10 or fewer vehicles with at least 75% operation that's mileage based in California. It is on a first come, first served basis, and fleets must be in compliance with the truck and bus regulation. Currently, replacements are available, or there's funding for replacements up to $60,000 per truck for a diesel to diesel replacement. And that's for trucks with a GVWR of greater than or equal to 14,001 pounds with an engine model year of 2009 and older. Now, throughout this presentation, keep in mind VIP focuses on the engine model year, which is usually a year older than the truck year. Drayage trucks are also eligible with engine model years 2007 to 2009, and the existing truck can be diesel or alternative fuel. Next slide, please. So this is a big picture overview of the process of how the program usually works. So applicants would visit the approved VIP dealer. The dealer verifies the eligibility and prepares the application. And dealer would submit the completed application to South Coast AQMD. And once we receive it and we deem the application complete in terms of being able to log in, we have 15 business days to respond, whether it's approved or rejected. Once it's approved, South Coast AQMD would send an approval notification and reimbursement package to the dealer. That initiates the reimbursement process for the dealer or for the voucher. So the dealer submits the reimbursement package to South Coast AQMD, and once we receive that package, we have 15 business days to process the invoice. At the same time, the old truck must be delivered to the dismantler by the dealer. So the applicant would surrender the truck to the dealer, and the dealer is responsible to coordinate with the dismantler to deliver the old truck to them. The applicant would take delivery of the new truck from the VIP dealer, and the dismantler must destroy the old truck within 60 days. And after taking delivery of the new truck, the applicant is required to submit an annual usage report for 3 years. Next slide, please. So the VIP has been around for actually over 10 years now, and in its first 10 years, we funded over 1,200 trucks, totaling 42 million in funds with various pots of funding that was allocated for the program. And we're looking forward to continue this progress and continue building its momentum that's been increasing over the past few years. But to date, we've done about 42 million. Next slide, please. So this year, we're also doing a partnership with the MSRC, which is the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Review Committee, MSRC for short. And I just wanted to provide some background about the MSRC. They were established in 1990 under Assembly Bill 2766 with the mission of funding projects that result in direct and tangible emission reductions from motor vehicles. and their funding comes from the AB 2766 portion from the vehicle registration fees. MSRC is comprised of 8 members, one representative from each of the 4 county transportation commissions within South Coast AQMD, and 1 representative each from South Coast, AQMD, CARB, SCAG, and Regional Rideshare Agency. And MSRC is also referred to as Clean Transportation Funding, which is also, I believe they call it MSRC. It's Clean Transportation Funding is a common term they refer to MSRC as well. Next slide, please. So in March, I believe, or April, our governing board approved a collaboration with the MSRC, where their board and our board agreed on a cooperative process where we're going to offer something called the plus-up option. Basically, what this is that applicants that come to apply for the VIP will now have the option of getting additional funding for a truck that meets the cleanest optional low NOx standard, which is at the 0.02 NOx grams per brake horsepower hour. This means that the low NOx option is 90% cleaner than current standards. And applicants that want to pursue this would need to select this option when applying for their application. And what this will do, it doesn't change anything in the application submittal process. The only difference is when the applicant is choosing the truck that they want to purchase, they would pick the one that has an engine that's certified to 0.02 NOx. And they would indicate this in the replacement truck engine information section of the application. The table provided below shows the potential additional funding based on each class. So class 7 and 8 can get a total combined value of $100,000 per truck. And the way this will work is South Coast AQMD will evaluate the voucher application as any other application and calculate their voucher amount based on their usage. Then if the applicant is opting for this plus-up option, the MSRC will cover the remaining portion up to that cap, so long as it's not no more than 90% of the total replacement truck cost. And for class 6 trucks, this will cover, there's eligibility for up to $80,000 for the low NOx option. And for class 5 trucks, it will be up to $60,000. So I know this is a lot of information, and I wanted to use this slide to stop and see if there are any specific questions about this or anything that we've talked about so far. So if you'd like to raise your hand, and we will call on you. Paul, if you could help out with that. Okay, I believe Matt is, okay. Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Hi, great to see all you guys. Thank you for doing this. Just a real quick question on this, Ash. Although there probably are no used trucks that meet the 0.02 gram standard in the marketplace, however, there's not a limitation on utilizing pre-owned equipment as long as the 0.02 gram standard is met. You can still use the plus up, or is it required to be new?
At this point, it's required to be new, because we understand that there isn't a market of 0.02 that's available. Now, as we progress, that might change, but Cynthia, would you mind? I believe when MSRC approved this on their end, it was with the understanding that it would be a new truck replacements, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Fantastic, thank you.
No problem, thank you. Any other questions? Let's see. I don't see any more hands. Okay, all right, then we shall continue. Okay, if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so what are the general criteria for dealers and dismantlers? You must have had a valid California business license for a minimum of the previous 2 years. You must maintain a minimum of 1 employee that has been trained by South Coast AQMD on the terms, conditions, and requirements of the VIP. And you must agree to allow South Coast AQMD or CARB to inspect vehicles or audit VIP records during normal business hours. Next slide, please. Okay, so that was just a general overview, and we're going to get into the meat and bones or meat and potatoes of the requirements for the dealer training, and we'll get started right now. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is expected of dealers? Dealers need to become familiar with all program requirements, along with providing accurate program information to applicants and assist them in completing applications correctly and accurately. They also need to perform vehicle inspections and ensure requirements are satisfied. One good thing about this program is all of the requirements, everything is all included in the VIP guidelines, which was emailed to you with the RSVP email confirmation yesterday. So whenever you have a question, I would strongly recommend that you review that first. And if you can't find an answer in there, you're more than welcome to contact us and we'd be able to provide some clarification. Next slide, please. Okay, what else is expected of the dealers? Dealers must contract with South Coast AQMD to participate in the VIP program. And a sample contract language is in the VIP guidelines. You must submit complete application packages to South Coast AQMD because incomplete packages will be rejected and returned to the applicant. Must provide accurate and complete documentation, show the voucher amount that was deducted from the purchase price of the vehicle, for example. Make sure all the key elements are provided and there's a checklist in the application. You must ensure that all requirements for the old vehicle and replacement vehicle have been satisfied. Next slide. Okay, other important dealer responsibilities. As we said, in terms of maintaining the program integrity and consistency of information, we want to make sure you provide guidance and supporting documentation, specifically verification of usage, whether it's miles or gallons for the past 24 months, and also certification of the small fleet. Currently, the program is set up such that it's only for small fleets, so you want to make sure when the applicant comes in, one of the first questions you ask them is, what is your fleet size? And the fleet size is counted based on the total number of diesel fueled vehicles that you have in your fleet that are over 14,000 pounds GVWR. If that's 10 or fewer, then you could qualify them further by asking the other questions, but that's one of the key elements that you want to find out first. You want to discourage the submittal of inaccurate or fraudulent information. We've had cases where we've had to look into a submittal or application that was submitted and verify the information, and depending on our investigation would proceed accordingly. But we want to make sure that the applicants are submitting representative information that's true and accurate of the vehicle that they're submitting for voucher funding. You also want to ensure that the old truck has not been stripped of its value, meaning that the way you saw the truck at the time of the pre-inspection is the same that it is at the time it's being delivered to the dismantler. It has to be operational. It can't be stripped of tires or key operational equipment. There's no such thing as towing an old truck to a dismantler. It has to be delivered and to the dismantler on its own power. And we want to make sure that everything is consistent with that. And most importantly, we want to make sure that dealers are transferring the full value of the voucher to the customer. So please make sure that the voucher amount that is approved is actually consistent with the pricing that was initially quoted for the truck. Next slide, please. So over the past 11 years that I've been working on the VIP program, the guidelines has slowly grown. It used to be about 60 pages. Now we're at 104. And it seems like with more options coming along the way, there's going to be more funding tables. And that's just a matter of situational in terms of choices and options that are available. A lot of it is dictated by the truck and bus regulation, which is the key element that applicants must demonstrate compliance with. And because there's so many compliance paths or compliance options, this generates a lot of different tables in the VIP guidelines. And then if you take that number and double it, because whether the applicant is choosing new or used, there's a separate table for each option as well. So I created this little five steps to help figuring it out, because even I have to sometimes stop and remind myself, okay, which table are we using for this applicant? Because how, which path are they falling under? So what you want to do is first determine the GVWR for the existing truck, meaning the gross vehicular weight rating. That's the weight rating that's designated by the truck manufacturer, not the one that you see on the DMV registration, because that's the gross combined weight, but this is the manufacturer gross vehicular weight. And based on that, that would be your starting point. The next key element is to ask for a trucker's compliance printout from the applicant, which is something they would need to go into the trucker's database for ARB and print that out. Based on that, there's a column in the compliance path summary in the trucker's database that specifies whether the applicant is using the engine model year schedule, or whether they were grandfathered in because they installed a filter prior to January 1st, 2014, or if they're under a agricultural vehicle exempt extension, or if they're in a NOx exempt area. There's a lot of options there. So it's important to find out by looking at the trucker's documentation which path they fall under, because that will also dictate the next step of which table you should be looking at. And like I said earlier, the truckers or DTR documentation, truckers is for people that aren't serving the ports. It's just private fleets that are on the road, and DTR is for the people who are in the drayage truck registry. Either of those will specify the compliance path that's chosen by the applicant. And once you determine which path they use, then you would determine whether they're purchasing a new or used replacement truck. And lastly, you would calculate the mileage for the past 2 12-month periods and determine the potential voucher amount based on the corresponding table using the engine model year and usage. So if we can go to the next slide, I have an example. Okay, so this is table 04BA. And this example is for an applicant that has a Class 8 truck. As you can see, I've highlighted the GVWR, which was the first step to see, what class they fall under. So they're over 33,000 pounds. And then they're choosing to buy a new replacement truck. So, there would be an equivalent table like this for a used replacement truck. Now, if you look at the second bullet also, it says no truck and bus regulatory 2010 compliance date before January 1st, 2023. So for trucks that have compliance through that date and they're following the engine model year schedule or the specialty ag extension or the log truck phase-in, this is the table they would use. And what you would do is you would ask for their mileage records or fuel usage. Mostly I highly recommend mileage because it's a lot easier to calculate that versus totaling the fuel usage for an applicant for their truck. But what you would do is depending on, let's say they applied this month, May of 2020, you would look at their usage from May 2019 to May 2020 and compare that with the usage from May 2018 to May 2019. So the two 12-month periods. And based on those two, you would select the lower of the two mileages to determine their voucher amount. And let's say they did, 63,000 miles per year. So you look at this table and they're a 2008 truck with a 2007 engine. So based on that, in this scenario, they would qualify for a voucher amount of 35,000. Now, let me point out, let's say this applicant, they want to also get the plus up. So in this scenario, they would not only get the 35,000, but they would get an additional 65,000 from MSRC if they pick the 0.02 NOx option. Okay. I think this is a good slide to ask for questions. So are there any questions about this? Or have I thoroughly confused everybody? Oh, no. Okay, there's two questions. All right, let's start with, okay, Jim Diaz, please go ahead. Jim?
He's ready to go, Ash.
Okay, all right.
Jim,
Go
you're
ahead.
ready to go and unmuted.
Jim, you there?
Jim, go ahead. Can you speak?
Okay, why don't we come back to Jim? And there's another person, I don't know their name because it's by phone, so. Oh, let's see here. Okay,
Okay,
Good morning.
ending 561, whoever that attendee is, you're free to talk.
give us your name and your affiliation, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, what is your name?
Oh, good morning, Ash. This is Esteban Echeverria from Inland Kenworth. Good morning,
Nice.
everybody.
Right.
So based on the example you just brought up, basically, even if you get a smaller funding amount, when you combine the option, the plus option, through the MSRC, you can get up to the full $100,000 funding amount, right?
So long as that doesn't exceed 90% of the new truck cost, which you.
Correct. Okay. I just want to make sure it was not an additional 60,000 to the 35 that completes it 95 instead of 100. That's what I was trying to make sure.
Yeah, that's our intent, or that's the goal of how we were going to do this, to help,
Okay.
further incentivize the lowest or cleanest technology available. And because of our quality challenges in our basin, we thought this is a easier opportunity without having to make the applicant jump through any additional hoops by just selecting the cleanest option that's commercially available. They could automatically get an additional bump or plus up for that option.
Correct. So even if you qualify for under, let's say, less amount of fuel or miles, you can still get in all the way up to the max funding amount through the plus option, right?
There's potential, and it's so long as they meet the other program requirements, there is an option there, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was just my clarification that I need. Okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Esteban. Let's try Jim again, because I think he's been waiting, so.
Sounds good, Ash. I think we could. Jim Diaz, are you on the line?
Okay, last call, Jim, or we can try again later if you like. Going, all right. We'll reach out to you again later. Oh, we have a couple other questions. Okay, let's do Best Deal Trucks. Please announce your name and unmute.
I got unmuted. Hi, Ash. This is Irene from Bastille.
Hi, Irene.
Hey, I just have a question. I always get confused on the compliance when I'm looking for the correct chart.
Mm-hmm.
So the truck is due like the end of this December, this year. It's not going to qualify?
That's correct. Unfortunately, if they're less than 12 months away from their compliance deadline, they would no longer qualify. Actually, one of the handouts I emailed all of you is that one-page summary from ARB, which is the truck and bus compliance summary. And I really recommend you print that and have that handy when you're talking with an applicant, because that pretty much lays out what their compliance deadline is. So if you have someone that is less than a year away from their compliance deadline, unfortunately, our incentive programs are not allowed to fund that because it's no longer considered surplus emission reductions. So I wouldn't encourage them to.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have another one.
Bill
Joe?
Bill McCarthy,
Oh,
or we could still try for, well,
okay, where's, let's see here.
Hi, it's Joe McCarthy. Can you hear me?
great.
Hi, Joe. Good morning.
Hi, South Bay Ford. Question, so if a truck on this chart is going to be more than 12 months out before the compliance, in other words, it'll be legal next year. Let's say it's a 08 medium duty truck with a 20,000 GVW. Which chart, can you show us real quick, which chart to go to?
Sure, I'm gonna, let me open my file. My screen is gonna go away, but you guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, bear with me. On that truck and bus compliance requirement overview, there's two tables. There's one that says engine model year schedule for heavier vehicles, which is for anything over 26,000 pounds. So in your scenario, would it be over 26 or under 26?
Under 26.
Okay, under 26. So there's another table to the right of that main table saying for lighter vehicles, engine model year schedule. So if it's a 2008, you said 2008?
Yeah, let's say it's a 2008.
So 2008 has till January 1st, 2023 to be in compliance. Therefore, even next year, they could apply. Basically, the last time they could apply would be December 31st, 2022, if that helps.
Okay, actually that chart is for 33 GVW and above, so.
So yeah, I'm sorry. Let me get back to the presentation. Can we go to the next slide, Paul? Slide 16. Okay, so this was going to be my next example. So if we have a medium heavy duty truck here well, this one is for GVWR 26,001 to 33,000, but there's also a table that's for below 26,000, and you would just follow the compliance deadline. This one, for example, they have a compliance deadline of January 1st, 2022. So they could apply all of this year until December 31st, because come January 1st, 2021, we're 12 months away from the compliance deadline. And I'd be happy to go over the specific table that would apply to your scenario offline later, if you like. But the mechanism or the protocol that you check it out would be the same way. You there, Joe?
Yeah, I'm muted. Okay, that's good. Appreciate it.
Does that help? Okay, all right. And I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you offline later for more specific details. So we can touch base later. Okay, let's see here. How do I? Hey, Paul, are there any more hands raised? For some reason, it's. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, there's two more. Okay, Joe's done. So let me remove that. Okay, so Mike has a question, I believe.
Hi, Ash. Mike with Rush Truck Center. Actually,
Hi, Mike. We can barely hear you. If you could speak a little louder, please.
Hi, Ash. Mike with Rush Truck Center. Can you hear me okay?
A little bit better, yeah.
Actually, a follow-up to that question that Joe asked. Reason is because one of your charts showed that the example that he used, 2008, may not be usable for your program, though it's still CARB compliant until 2023. So can you go back to Joe's question, or Joe's, can we use a 2008?
2008 should be
Truck.
fine. We're talking about under 26,000 pounds, right?
Right. The last chart that I saw, or it was showing that it only allowing 2009 engines and newer.
No. Did you look at the latest VIP guidelines that we emailed everybody yesterday?
So I'm looking at the chart that you presented a few minutes ago and we're scrolling down. And it showed trucks.
Oh, you mean the compliance summary?
Yeah,
You need me to
it
pull
showed
up a
trucks under 26,000 have to be engineer model 2009 and newer.
Let's see here.
Just give me the slide number if you'd like one, Ash.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is just a handout. Is there a way for me to show this on my computer or no? Or not, because you're hosting, it has to be through you, Paul.
No.
You know, I can, Mike, I can discuss this with you as well later if you don't mind, but 2008 is still eligible to the, as far as the VIP guidelines, because the tables are for 2000, depending on the weight class, but a 2008 class 6 truck would still be eligible.
If it's on your PC, you can share your screen, Ash.
My PC, even though it's on the remote side.
Not sure.
That's
Maybe-
okay. I will.
Maybe you take it up with him offline and you could email it to him.
Yeah. You have the form in front of you, Mike, the handout?
I'm trying to relocate now. I'm looking at the attachments.
It's the one that was labeled the CARB compliance summary. Truck and bus compliance requirement overview.
I got that. Let me see if I can open it on my screen.
Okay.
Well, as far as compliance, I'm aware of that, yes. But as far as funding or qualifying for the funding,
Yeah, so the reason I keep talking about the funding is all based on compliance. So if the funding, like if you, for example, the 2008 medium heavy duty truck, they would still be compliant. They're due in January 1st, 2023. So that's why I'm relatively confident that they would be eligible for funding. So long as they meet the minimum mileage requirements and everything else under the program. They have to have owned the truck for 2 years, have had the 24 months of California registration and insurance, all the other elements, all the check boxes are checked off and they satisfy that, and they meet the minimum annual mileage requirement, then I don't see why they wouldn't. Okay.
Your slide number 16.
Okay.
So there's a mismatch basically in compliance versus funding availability. Table 03BA, it's saying that a truck GW 26 to 33, it's still compliant if it's got an engine 2005, 2006.
Correct.
So for truck and bus regulation compliance, that truck should have had a PM filter done.
Right, but having a PM filter, because this example, they're over 26,000 pounds. Therefore,
right, those trucks normally don't have a PM filter from the factory.
yeah, for the lighter trucks, there's no PM compliance deadline. So for the heavier trucks over 26, they had an initial compliance deadline. And as long as they're ahead of the final compliance deadline where they have to replace the truck. So all the trucks that are applying that are on the heavy duty side, they could only apply if they're currently compliant. And the way they'd be compliant is they've had a filter installed. And depending on the engine model year of the truck and how long ago they installed the filter, for example, when I was saying earlier, if they've installed it prior to January 1st, 2014, then they would be grandfathered in till January 1st, 2023. And that would be something that would be verified through the trucker's documentation from ARB. So
I found the slide, Ash, slide number 17. Engine must be model year 2009 or older.
okay,
Is that what you're referring to?
right. That's for the old truck. The old truck
Right.
must, yeah. So
Okay.
2009 and older, it would include 2008, right?
Got you, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so
2010.
we haven't gone to that one yet, but if we can go back to slide 16, please. Okay. So did I answer your question, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there anybody else? Any other question? Oh, Roger, I believe, has a question. Hi, Roger, go ahead.
Ready to go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, I registered, but I didn't get any like confirmation, but that's another thing. My question is, I have a customer who has a 2009 natural gas,
Okay.
yeah, semi truck. And let me see. And then he runs like a 350,000 mile. And that's the Cummins engine with a 8.9. Well, I don't know what kind of engine, but my question is, he's running for the poor.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is, those kind of engine is qualified for the VIP?
Yeah, it's a CNG or LNG?
It's a natural gas. It's a, I'm not sure, but basically, yeah. My question is, LMG.
LNG, okay.
Right.
Yeah, the guidelines allow diesel or alternative fuel for the baseline truck, meaning the old truck. So I can't say yes or no, they'll be funded for sure, but they sound like they might be eligible so long as they meet all the other requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, I don't see any more. So, okay, we can go on to the next slide then. Okay, so what are the requirements for the existing truck or older vehicle for replacement projects? So as we mentioned earlier, the engine must be a model year 2009 or older. Now keep in mind, we're focusing on the engine year, not the truck year. So it is possible that the truck may be 2010 with a 09 engine. Usually on the heavier duty side, there is a 1 year difference between the truck year and the engine year. So 2009 and older is eligible, including drayage trucks that are 2007 to 2009. And as was asked earlier, the old truck can be diesel or alternative fuel. The GVWR must be 14,001 pounds or greater, and the truck must have been owned by the applicant for the previous 24 months. And the vehicle title with the owner and applicant listed as the sole owner. So this is an important element that I want to highlight is the VIP guidelines require that the applicant is the sole owner, meaning the individual owner at the time of application submittal. So if it's co-owned, it would need to, the title would need to be changed before submitting the application. Now, let's say the title is under a business name where there are multiple owners, but it's all in the same family or same group of people that are working together, and it's under the business name. Then we would need to make sure that the applicant that's applying is the chief executive CEO or president of the company, and that would be demonstrated with documentation from the county board of. There's a form that you would submit demonstrating that the applicant is actually the president that's applying. Now, if it's equal ownership and all the other owners are like in the family and they're fine with submitting an application, you could also have a letter generated saying that all the other partners in the company authorize, whoever the individual is that's applying to submit the application on behalf of the company and submit that as a notarized letter, and we're willing to accept that as well. But make sure, please, that there's no active lien holders, meaning that, if the truck hasn't been paid off, you need to make sure that's removed before you apply. Furthermore, you need to have continuous California registration for the past 24 months or 8 consecutive months if you don't have the 24 months, supplemented with 24 months of California operation. What that means is we need to have a proof that this truck was in operation for every single month over the 24 months if you don't have 24 months of California registration. The way that would be demonstrated is delivery receipts or bills of lading that show mileage and delivery of whatever was delivered or operation of that specific truck for each month over the past 24 months. And keep in mind, we only need that if you don't have 24 months of California registration. If you already have that, then that's not necessary. It's an either or. Some people are really good with keeping their records, and some of the lighter heavy duty trucks, they register on an annual basis. They don't do month to month. So having 2 years is not much of a challenge for them. But this option does exist for people that want to use that. In addition, you need to provide proof of insurance showing continuous history over the previous 24 months as well. Next slide, please. Okay. Some additional requirements for the existing truck. The old truck must have been operated in California in the each 12 month period, at least 75% of the time. So that means that we take the mileage and this applies for people who have IFTA registration. You know, they go out of state, and if they go out of state, we need to have their IFTA documentation, the California IRP, the California Interstate Registration Program. They need to provide their usage, the quarterly usage, showing that the truck was in fact operated in California for 75% of the time based on their mileage. So if your applicant is exclusively operating in California, then there's no problem. You just provide the DMV registration that's California only, and this requirement is satisfied. Also, the old truck must be in operational condition, which needs to be verified by the dealer at the time of the pre-inspection. And I'll talk about more details about what's required in this inspection in the future slide. The engine specs must be verifiable through the tag. Now, if the engine tag is missing, we still need the serial number stamped on the engine block or somewhere. That the applicant can either order a new tag or have the engine serial number stamped. And all the other requirements for the engine, like the engine model year, engine family number, and things like that can be verified with information from the manufacturer. As long as the manufacturer provides documentation cross-referencing the serial number for that engine, then we can accept that documentation. Glider kits are also acceptable for the old vehicle only. Haven't gotten many of those, actually just one in the past 11 years, but it is eligible or acceptable. If approved for a voucher, but subsequently the old vehicle undergoes an accident or failure, it's still eligible for an award. So let's say you've done a pre-inspection on the old truck and it gets in an accident and it's totaled, or catches on fire or something unexpected happens. So long as the pre-inspection has already been completed, that doesn't disqualify the applicant from proceeding further. The participants must deliver the old vehicle to the dealer in the same condition as when it was pre-inspected. So as I mentioned earlier, there's multiple inspections that the dealer does. There's one called the pre-inspection, which is the first time you inspect the truck to document the condition and the key elements. And then there's something called a pre-dismantle inspection, where the dealer re-inspects the old truck. And this is what this bullet is referring to. The dealer has to make sure that the photos and information that they're taking at the pre-dismantle inspection are consistent with what they saw at the pre-inspection, so that there's no stripping the parts or taking key elements off that isn't required. Everything has to be in the same condition. If the vehicle is not considered roadworthy, the dealer is required to reject that and notify us accordingly. Next slide, please. Okay. So as we've been talking earlier, one of the key elements to qualify for a voucher is to show that you are in compliance with CARB's truck and bus regulation. And the way that would be demonstrated is through providing several pieces of documentation that the applicant can print from the trucker's database. So the applicant must print out the trucker's compliance certificate, or DTR documentation if they're a drayage truck. In addition, if they're in the truckers database, there's 3 other pages that's on the same website that they log into that they need to print out. They need to print out the compliance status, the vehicle info, and company info. So all 4 of those documents must be printed out and provided to the dealer when submitting the application. Keep in mind, this is very important, and ARB is very specific about this, is whatever date that you're printing out the information, make sure the application is signed by the applicant on the same date. The applicant can't come in like May and sign the application and have everything and then have something printed out 2 months later or something like that. So I want to make sure that it's clear that the date that they signed the application and dated is the same as the date that's on the printout date for these 4 pieces of documents. Any questions on this? I think this is an important element that I want to make sure everybody understands. So if you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Jim, you there? Jim?
You said there was a website to go to this trucks thing. Do you have a website that you can give us so we can pull the documentation?
Sure. You can just go to Google and type in truck stop, and then there'll be a link to the truckers, but I'd be happy to email that to you if you need.
Yeah, I think that's important. Everybody has the same data on that. And then my previous question before, in the 0.2% emission, that naturally, that was an electric vehicle. If we replaced a diesel vehicle with an electric vehicle, they qualify for both sides of the incentive, correct?
Yes, I believe.
Vehicle would count.
Yeah.
It would count. And then if there's any other money out there, it's not going to be saying, we're not going to go after any electric incentive and then have somebody say, well, you got the Moyer money, you can't get the electric. Does that happen, or are they totally separate?
Well, you can't end up getting more than the value of the vehicle.
Right, I agree with that. I concur. I concur with that. Yeah, I'm just stating that if there's an electric vehicle incentive out there by the state of California, that can be added to this if the vehicle, naturally, the price of the vehicle needs to be covered when the retiring of the old vehicle takes place, correct? We can use the Moyer money and any state money.
Well, this isn't Moyer, this is VIP and MSRC. So
okay. We can use MSRC money and state money, most likely. I mean, they would be compatible with each other.
I mean, I can only speak for the MSRC money, but yeah, we would not have a problem with that. The other colors of money, sometimes they have issues with them being combined, so.
Okay, okay, yeah, but you guys don't have any, you guys don't have a concern with that. Okay, good. Right. Those are the two, thank you.
But for VIP, they might, we'd have to check with ARB because they are very particular just to get a cooperation or cooperative collaboration with MSRC. We had to demonstrate to ARB that there wouldn't be any other funding for this project. So I could check that with them and let you know.
Yeah, just see what works and what doesn't. We dealers know about compatibility issues when it comes to incentives, and we don't want to be quote unquote charged back for this stuff.
Yeah, would you mind sending me a quick email, Jim, with that question,
sure.
And then forward it to ARB?
Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. There's a caller, I believe. I think it might be Esteban again. Let's see here. Go ahead.
Yes, Ash, that's me again. One more question. Going back to your previous comment about, since this is application where you have a 10 or fewer trucks, let's say for a fleet that it has more than one truck on their fleet, and they running with the IFTA, and I mean with an IRP plate, they have an IFTA report. Usually, one of my issues in the past was it was hard to demonstrate an individual IFTA report for that particular truck that is trying to be replaced through the VIP program, since in general the companies they file the IFTA report all together, and they even if they will show on the IFTA report the actual miles for that particular unit, it was hard to demonstrate. There's anything that you guys have set up that you could tell me how can we demonstrate those individual IFTA miles for that particular truck out of that fleet?
Sure. I can tell you what's worked and what hasn't, and maybe that helps. We've had scenarios where a small fleet, 10 or less, they're IFTA, they're IRP registered for all their trucks, like they have 5 trucks. What they do is they go through a third party who does their reporting for them, because they have, 8 trucks that they're.
Yeah, an agent. Mm-hmm.
And what they do is in order for them to do the IFTA reporting, which is, like you said, is the summary of the total for it's not per truck. In order for that entity to do that for them, they actually have to gather the per truck data from the applicant. So when they gather all that and tabulate it, they generate a letter for us saying, we certify that this is what we've received from the applicant, and this corresponds to this truck specifically. And they certify that and send us an official letter that specifies that. And, we take that information and, accept it in that format. But someone that just takes.
They do an amendment with the miles just for that particular truck. Okay. One more question, if possible.
Okay, just let me finish the part about the examples.
Go ahead. Sorry, right.
That's okay. The examples that don't work, though, is like that same scenario. If they have 8 trucks, they can't just take the total and divide it by 8 and say this is our usage for that one truck.
Correct.
Because usage is truck specific. So we
Correct.
want to make sure that whoever is doing the reporting for them can certify that, yeah, this is the usage for this truck, unit number 1, and it's not reflective of a sum for other trucks that are in the fleet. And as long as that's clearly documented, we're more than happy to accept that.
Okay, perfect. Can I ask one more question before we go further? But that's something that you already explained. I tried to ask you before, but I couldn't get in. For retrofit older trucks, that currently has the extension to 2023, they're going to be acceptable, right?
So long as, like I said earlier, as long as they've retrofitted the truck prior to January 1st, 2014, and also they reported to truckers by no later than January 31st, 2014. So ARB would have that information already. So you want to, and the way you would know that is in the trucker's documentation with the compliance path, where you look at to see what the compliance deadline is for in the printout. There's a column there that would say compliance through January 2023. That would
Correct,
tell you
exactly. Yeah, if they don't have the extension to 2023, it's because they can't qualify. Basically, they have to be able to submit it 2 years prior to the due date, right? So
12 months ahead of the due date. 12 months, not 2
Oh,
years.
I see. Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
you.
I see one more caller on the line. Let's see here. Hi, who's this?
Hey, Ash, it's Walter from Rush and Fillmore. How you doing?
Hi, Walter.
You hear me?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. So I'm just going to backtrack a little bit back to the title where, you're saying that the lien holder needs to sign off on the title. As long as the title is signed off, it is an acceptable title, correct? You don't need the lien holder actually removed with a new title with the DMV and then resetting the date on the title.
No, we don't need it at the time of application, but before we pay the voucher, we need the lien holder removed.
Okay. All right. And then the second part of the question is, I know that we've had a couple situations with customers in the past that, a normal financial structure is normal when the customer pays it off in 60 months or what have you. But then we also have customers that do a financial structure like a track lease is what it's called. It's called a track lease. It's not really a lease. It's a purchase structured like a lease. But I think we have issues getting people like that accepted because of that. Is that still the same case?
Yeah, that hasn't changed because if I remember correctly, the way the title shows is lessor lessee, right? There's a lessor and a lessee on the title.
Okay.
And
Yes.
in ARB's interpretation of this, you know, a leased truck, you have to have owned it, so you haven't leased it. Now on the new truck, there may be future options that they're considering as a leasing, but the old truck has to have been owned for 2 years and it can't have been a lease.
Okay, so they need to be completely done with that track lease purchase for 2 years, so they can technically say they've owned it for 2 years and then apply.
Well, yeah, because the title won't show them as owners, right?
I mean, they'll have a signed up title, the same thing, you know, but it's just the whole point of you guys want it to be fully paid off so that they aren't a lessee. So the only way to do that is they have to wait 2 years after they've made their last payment to not be considered that, for you guys to think they actually own it for 2 years, correct?
Yeah. I mean, we can discuss this scenario offline more, Walter. There are certain cases that we can consider, but
Okay.
our interpretation is that the title has to show the applicant as the owner. So if there's a lessor lessee, it's really hard for us to know how long they've owned. I know they're making the payments and they're not technically the owner, but we need a way to demonstrate they've been the owner. And ownership in ARB's eyes is registered owner on the title, not as a lessor or lessee.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked, we do a lot of that, so I mean that's going to come up. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, a lot more hands. Okay. Let's see. Okay, are these questions about the slide right now or general question? Well, let's try here. Let's go for this one. Okay, is this Esteban? No, who's this? Go ahead.
Is this 912 or Roger McCarthy? Joe McCarthy.
Let's see, Esteban's done. Let's see here. I think these are people who, okay, let me see here. Yeah, Esteban's done, so I'm going to lower his hand. And 912, we just talked. So, okay, so let's see. Roger, did you have another question? I don't think so. Okay. All right, let's move on. So can we go to the next slide, Paul, please?
$20?
Yes, sorry. So we're on slide 20. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about we finished talking about the old truck. Now we're going to talk about what the requirements are for the new truck. So the truck must be purchased from a South Coast AQMD approved participating dealership with an engine model year 2013 or newer, and the engine must be certified to a level of 0.2 gram per brake horsepower hour for NOx and 0.01 gram per brake horsepower hour for PM or cleaner. Of course, if the applicant is pursuing the plus up, they must acquire the newest replacement technology available, certified to a minimum of 0.02 gram per brake horsepower hour for NOx or cleaner. Applicants can purchase new or used for the standard VIP, and for the plus up right now, it's only new. And if you do choose the used option, there are certain mileage caps on the replacement truck. For the heavy duty 33,001 and greater pounds, they have to be under 500,000 miles on the odometer. And for medium heavy duty 250, and for light heavy duty 150. And the truck must be registered by the California DMV in the same weight class as the old vehicle. So if the old vehicle is a medium heavy duty, the replacement must be the same. It can't vary between, it has to be apples for apples. Next slide, please. Okay. So the vehicle title must be clean. This is particularly for obviously the used trucks. It must not have been in an accident or repaired for resale. And you must provide a minimum of a 1 year, 100,000 mile major component warranty for the engine warranty covering parts and labor. The replacement truck must be delivered in California. You can't have an out-of-state delivery, and there's no modifications allowed for the emission control system. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over some examples of what's accepted. So for the requirement to currently own and operate the old vehicle, you would provide a DMV title that shows the applicant name with no active lien holder. Again, if the bank has already signed off on the lien holder, that's fine, and we could proceed with that so long as we get the clean title before we issue the payment. For the minimum 2 years history of driving the truck, you can provide various records. Preferably, we provide the tune-up records and maintenance records that clearly document the vehicle information and the odometer, such as like logbooks, maintenance reports. In the case that they want to do fuel receipts, I do want to caution everybody, because in order for the fuel receipt to be accepted, that receipt must be linked to the vehicle. So it can't just be a gas station receipt that just shows a total and there's no information about which vehicle that went to, because otherwise there's no way for us to link that. So usage document must clearly substantiate the usage and be linked to the project vehicle. If the records are illegible, inconsistent, or not linking the vehicle to the documentation, it will be excluded from the calculation. Also, for the old truck operating at least 75% of the miles in California for each 12-month period for the previous 24 months. Again, if the records are acceptable, it works great for single truck fleets, obviously, because there's no need for certification of the usage for multiple trucks. However, as we mentioned earlier, if you do have a fleet of 10 or less that you have someone do your reporting for IFTA, as long as they're willing to provide a certified letter validating the usage for that specific truck, we're willing to accept that. Next slide, please. Okay, so just want to give a 10,000-foot perspective of what the process is for the dealer. So the dealer would inspect the applicant's existing vehicle and the documentation and to determine eligibility. Again, when they walk in, you want to ask them, 3 main questions. What's the GVWR? Are they in compliance? And what's their, annual usage? And those 3 items will give you an idea of if it's, feasible or not. So if eligible, the dealer would assist the applicant to complete the application. And the dealer would submit the completed application to South Coast AQMD, and we would review it and approve it or reject it within 15 business days. If it's rejected, the applicant would get the letter along with the application explaining why it was rejected. Now, this program, because it is under a 15 business day deadline or 15 business day timeline for each application, as much as we'd like to sit there and spend time with every application that comes in and explain what are all the required elements, when we are getting 20 to 30 applications per week, it becomes very difficult to do that with a 15-day turnaround timeline. So just because you get rejected, it doesn't mean it's all or nothing. You are welcome to resubmit a brand new application with the dealer and providing the missing elements, but it has to be a new application that's being resubmitted. Now, once we review it, it's complete and it gets approved, the dealer gets the voucher package, which is we refer to as the dealer reimbursement package. The applicant would sign the purchase order and an invoice, and the dealer gets the vehicle ready. Applicant would turn in the old truck and picks up the new truck and signs the receipt of voucher. The dealer contacts the authorized dismantler for pickup of the old truck, and dealer compiles the dealer reimbursement package and sends it to South Coast AQMD. And South Coast AQMD would approve the reimbursement package and issues payment to the dealer. Similar to the application review process, we have 15 business days to review the dealer reimbursement package. And at that point, we really do try to help the dealers get everything complete. The 99% of the time, the dealers have everything in there. Sometimes we need some edits, specifically to like the W-9 form that needs to be filled out, and things that may have been overlooked or requirements that are outlined in the program. But we work with the dealers to try to get that payment process in a timely fashion. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are 3 different distinct inspections that are required to be done by the dealer. There's a pre-inspection for the old truck where the dealer would inspect the old truck at the time that the applicant comes in with their truck and provides the information for the supplemental documentation for the application. And they confirm, the dealer would take specific photos that are outlined in our inspection form, and they verify that its truck is operational and eligible for program award. After the voucher has been approved and we send the dealer reimbursement package to the dealer, the applicant would need to provide that old truck to the dealership again for a pre-dismantle. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a re-inspection of the old truck with the same required photos. The purpose of this is to make sure that there's been no substantial changes since the initial pre-inspection. Dealers have to reject the condition of the existing vehicle if it's deemed unroadworthy or if parts were stripped from the existing vehicle. The title is signed off and the old vehicle is released to the dealership. For the new truck, there's a post-inspection where the dealer confirms the program-funded truck to be awarded is correct, the correct vehicle and meets all the program requirements, and the dealer completes the post-inspection for the new truck as well. Just to point out, the pre-dismantle and post-inspection are all combined in the dealer reimbursement package and submitted to South Coast AQMD at the time of submitting the reimbursement request. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to reiterate this because we want to make sure submittal of complete application packages are very, very essential. We want to make sure all of the requirement elements are in there. If it's not, it further delays it, and too many missing things, and we have to end up rejecting it. So you want to make sure all of these elements are in there. You need a copy of the old vehicle title, and the applicant again must be the sole owner. The vehicle usage documentation for the previous 24 months, DMV registration for the past 24 months, or 8 consecutive with 24 months of California operation, 24 months of insurance records, inspection form, the pre-inspection form signed by the dealer, digital photos. For the digital photos, you're welcome to take the photos and paste 4 to 6 photos, depending on what picture it is on a single Word document or however format. But you want to make sure that they're clear and legible because it is representing information for the old truck. Also, I want to point out inspections that are required by the dealer may not be done by the applicant. This is a dealer responsibility. So it's not like you can't tell the applicant, hey, take the pictures and email them to me and I'll submit it with the application. When you're signing that form, you're certifying under penalty of perjury that you've taken these photos and you're providing these, and these are information that has been verified by your dealership. You want to verify the old engine model year and make sure that the signed quote and specification sheet for the replacement vehicle is included in the package. Also, this is going to be very important specifically for all projects, but more important for applicants that want to pursue the plus up. Make sure you're providing the correct CARB executive order for the replacement engine. The executive order is a form that CARB issues for every engine that's authorized to operate in California. So you want to make sure you have the correct one, because when we approve the voucher, it's going to be based on that specific engine family number. And you want to make sure that is submitted with your application package. Next slide, please. Okay, I can't reiterate this enough, but incomplete packages will not be accepted. So please make sure you use the checklists that are provided. Make sure the application is signed and complete. There are no gaps in vehicle ownership or usage. All required documentation is included, including the inspection documentation and clear digital photos of the old vehicle. If it is your first time submitting, I would highly recommend you call with any questions. In previous years, I would recommend to meet with me in person, but currently due to COVID-19 concerns, that's not an option. But once those requirements are released, I'd be more than happy to offer that as an option as well. But feel free to call or email with any questions that you have before submitting one. It would save a lot of time on both your part and our part, and you get a better feel for what's required. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, because of COVID-19 measures, we've had to change the application submittal process. Because our agency is right now not open to the public, we're not able to accept any physical applications in person or by mail. So in order to submit a VIP application, you will need to complete the VIP application, including all supporting documentation and the completed pre-inspection forms and photos. And they have to be scanned, color scanned in one PDF document. So it's essential you make sure you have everything complete and you scan all of it and do a color scan so that we know it's original signature into one PDF document. And the file size must be no more than 20 megabytes. We've done a few practice scans of this, and we've noticed that the average scanning size was about 6 to 9 megabytes. So I don't anticipate this being a major problem. If you have an application that's scanning really high, there's two things you could do. You can lower the resolution on your scanner, or you can create a zip file which compresses the file by 60%. And both of those would help reduce the file size, because if it is more than 20 megabytes, our network will not be able to accept the email. So please make sure you do that before submitting. And all documents provided must be clear and legible. Now, we've created a distinct email address just for these application submittals. You would email the PDF document to this email address, VIP_program@aqmd.gov. Make note of the underscore, because it's not just VIP program at AQMD, it's VIP_program@aqmd.gov. And you only need to send that to that email address. You don't need to copy me or Cynthia Snyder or anybody else. By sending it to that, it will automatically come to us eventually. In the subject line of your email for the application, please enter the words VIP application dash and then the applicant name. So the example that I provided in the slide. If you're planning to submit more than one application, please send a separate email for each application and make sure that all of the requirements are met with the scanning and file name methodology. I think this is a good time for more questions because this is a new protocol that we're doing. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, Jim?
Boom. Okay, I got a couple of them. Number one, if selling a used vehicle, are you guys going to take the engine CARB executive orders for certification of the used vehicle that we're selling?
I'm sorry, well, I don't understand the question.
Yeah, a 2008 is being traded in, or you under the program, and the person is buying a 2016 vehicle.
Okay.
Are you going to take the executive order for the used vehicle? If we look it up, I need that address too to look those up. Are you going to take that as the engine being in compliant with the program?
Yeah, so long as it's certified as 0.2. There are engines that are FEL engines, and those are not eligible. So you want to make sure it's a non-FEL engine. FEL, if you're not familiar with, I'm just going to, for everyone's purpose, are engines that the engine manufacturer used previous credits to get an engine certified. And what they do is the engine gets certified, but if you see in the FEL row of the certification, it'll say some value above 0.2 for the NOx. It'll be like 0.25 or 0.33. Now, the reason that's allowed is because the manufacturer of that engine is cashing in previous credits that they got when they developed cleaner engines, and they are basically banked that credit for future use. And that's how they are able to get an engine that exceeds the 0.2 limit to be certified in today's day. So as long as the engine on the replacement truck is 0.2 or cleaner for the traditional VIP, or 0.02 or cleaner NOx for the plus up option, that will be acceptable in the non-FEL row.
Good answer. Where do we find the executive orders? What's that website?
That's on ARB's website too, and I can send that to you.
Yeah, we'll need that. The third question is, you said pictures of the vehicle pre-inspection and pre-inspection 2. You guys are not going to be affected if the vehicle has a body removed and it's now a chassis, correct? It's just the truck has to be the same.
You mean like
If
a,
a flatbed is a 2008 flatbed, it's being replaced with a 2020 flatbed, a 2020 chassis. We removed the flatbed off of the 2008. Now the truck doesn't have a bed on it. That doesn't make any difference to you.
is that because they're going to keep that flatbed for the new truck?
Correct. Yeah, we're transferring.
Yeah, that's kind of like the bobtails. I think they're called bobtails that have the
Right.
box. A lot of people don't want to pay for a new box, so they'll transfer the box over, and that's acceptable. The only thing that you need to do is on the pre-inspection, and there's a comment section on page 2 of the form, just put in that applicant will be transferring existing flatbed or box to replacement truck. That way it's documented and it's clear and there's no question about it.
And do we have access to seeing what pictures you want us to take of the vehicle, pre-inspection, post-inspection kind of thing?
All that is on the application form. The last 3 pages of the application form will be the inspection form. And there's a checklist for each inspection. So for the pre-dismantle and the post, there are specific required photos that's outlined on a bulleted checklist that you can look at. And as long as you provide those photos, we're fine with that.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay. I believe, okay, Claudia is next. Hi, Claudia. Claudia? Are you there? Okay, we can try again later, Claudia. We might be having some technical difficulties here. Okay, there's a phone call. Let's see here.
919.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Ash. This is Erica with Aero Truck Sales.
Hi, Erica.
Sorry, for the sake of clarification in regards to if they're reporting on a third-party agency, when you say they need to certify, are we talking just about the verbiage portion of the letter, or does it need to be notarized?
No, we prefer it to be notarized.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your question. Okay, I don't see any more. I think these are just people we haven't lowered their hands yet. So, okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Slide, I lost count, but I think it's 27 or 28. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, let's do 28. Okay. So once a voucher has been approved, South Coast AQMD will email the dealer the dealer reimbursement package. And these are the different forms that will be in there. And these will all need to be completed and submitted along with some other supporting documentation that I'm going to talk about in a later slide. But basically each of them have this appendix number and we'll provide this all to you. And you just need to fill out the specific sections and submit it along with the supporting documentation that we have. And there's a specific checklist that comes with dealer reimbursement packages as well. So you want to make sure you review that and you understand all the elements that are required. Next slide, please. Slide 29. Thank you. Okay, so the dealer reimbursement package must include the following original documents: the actual voucher, which will be a page appendix F, a receipt of voucher signed by the participant, and then the reimbursement invoice that will be signed by the dealership. Next slide. Okay, in addition to those forms, we will need the following items. We will need the DMV registration for the new truck, showing that the vehicle is registered to the participant in California. Now, I want to make a note about this because it's kind of like the the chicken or the egg phenomenon. I realize that dealers aren't able to get the DMV registration until they've delivered the truck. So in lieu of having the DMV registration for the new truck, whether it's new or used, there are 3 items that you need to provide that will satisfy this requirement based on guidance that we received from CARB. There's a DMV form 343, which I believe is the standard form whenever you sell a truck. It's the application for new title registration. So it's DMV form 343. There's another form called DMV Reg 4008, which is the form that shows what weight class the replacement truck is going to be registered at. So it's called DMV Reg 4008. And then the third item is going to be a copy of the old truck title that is signed off and dated by the applicant. Those 3 documents submitted to AQMD as part of your dealer reimbursement package constitute satisfying this requirement. So you want to make sure you have those forms and have them prepared, and they need to be signed, and all sections of the form need to be completed. So, but if you have any specific questions about that, I'd be happy to help you. Also, we need the financing documentation. We don't need the whole document of the loan or anything like that. We just need the letter specifying the terms of the loan and you know, like how many months, what the rate is, and the applicant name, and the information about the replacement truck, the VIN, and how much they're qualified for. And then the final invoice showing the final purchase price. So we want to make sure that the voucher amount is subtracted on that final invoice, and the remaining balance is covered with the financing documentation that you're providing. We don't want to have any balance that's unaccounted for. So please make sure that the financing amount is covering the remaining balance after the voucher amount has been reduced, and that's consistent. And the replacement vehicle must have a 1-year, 100,000-mile major engine component warranty, and that includes parts and labor. That's a required element for the program, so you want to make sure that's included and it's documented, and documentation is provided when submitting your package. And like I said earlier, the title of the old vehicle signed and dated by the applicant. So that would be one of the 3 elements to satisfy the DMV registration requirement for the new truck. Next slide, please. Okay. So in addition to those forms and supporting documentation, there's going to be the inspection forms. So the inspection form, the way it's set up, it's really easy because there's one form and it applies to all the inspections. It just depends on where you are in the stage of the inspection. And there's a box for the pre-dismantle, the post, and the destruction. So in terms of what dealers need to do is they would need to submit at the time of the dealer reimbursement package submittal, they would need to submit the pre-dismantle inspection and the post-inspection for the new truck. So the pre-dismantle will be for the old truck, and post-inspection will be for the new truck. So it's going to look like the same form, but just different sections are checked off, and you just need to make sure both forms are filled out and the corresponding photos are provided with it. Also, on the pre-dismantle inspection, on page 2, there's a question that asks, which dismantler yard will you be taking this old truck to? You need to provide that information and make sure it's the dismantler information is consistent with what you're planning to do. And where you would find the list of dismantlers, that's listed on our website at aqmd.gov/VIP. But please make sure you coordinate with the dismantler and let them know that you're going to be taking a truck to them, or if they're going to come pick it up. Either way, that information needs to be provided. Also, you need to specify the date that the old vehicle is being delivered to or picked up by the dismantler. We have an additional form that we've created. It's on our website. It's called Dealer Certification Form. And what this is proof from the dealer and dismantler showing that the old truck was picked up and delivered to the dismantler. And it has a section that needs to be signed by both the dealer and the dismantler. That's an element that you will need to also submit with your dealer reimbursement package. Previously, when we were still handing out checks before COVID-19, we would ask for this form after the dealer reimbursement package, and we would collect that at the time that you came to pick up the checks. However, because of this, we will need this completed and submitted along with the dealer reimbursement package. And I want to make sure that's clear. So if there are any questions about that, we can talk about it on the next slide. Paul, could we go to slide 32, please? Okay, so like the VIP application, we're also going to do the same COVID-19 measures for the dealer reimbursement package. The complete dealer reimbursement package, including all the supporting documentation, completed pre-dismantle and post-inspection photos, must be scanned into one PDF document in color. Same thing again about the file size. Remember that you want to adhere to staying under 20 megabytes. And all documents must be clear and legible. When submitting the PDF to the same email address, VIP_program@aqmd.gov, this time for the subject line, please just put the VIP number. You'll know the VIP number when we send out the approval of the voucher. It'll have a VIP number. It's going to be a 4-digit number. For example, the one I've written here is like VIP number 2877. And then you're going to put the letters DRP, which stands for Dealer Reimbursement Package, in the subject line of your email. So please make sure you include that and send it to the same email address. And again, you don't need to copy me or Cynthia Snyder on that. Just send it to that specific email address, please. And then we'll process that as they come in. Like previous slide about having multiple applications, if you have multiple dealer reimbursement packages, please send them as a separate email for each one. It'll be easier for tracking and logging and making sure all of them are processed in a timely fashion. As mentioned in the previous slide, dealers must submit the completed VIP dealer certification form with the dealer reimbursement package, and the check will be mailed directly to the dealership once it has been issued by our accounting department. This is a little different from before. We used to have that, we'd collect that at the time that you're coming to pick up the check. But again, because of COVID-19 measures and the fact that we need to make sure everybody's staying safe, everything will have to be done electronically. I think this is a good point or good part to start open for questions. So if there are any questions. Okay. All right, let's start with here. We'll do best deal here. Okay.
Can I talk? Okay. Okay. I always have an issue with these logbooks, okay? Because the customers come in with all these books, and last year I sent a packet and I got returned because it was too many pages. So, I mean, are they accepted or not accepted?
Well, we can discuss a specific scenario offline, but I can't say yes or no depending on what we see on there. It all has to do with what information is on there, and it has to have the detailed information about the truck and the usage. And sending something that has 730 sheets of paper that doesn't have the details or it's illegible is not going to provide anything to anyone that provides value for validating the usage. So I would recommend, instead of using their tune-ups, if they do, a lot of these trucks do bid inspections, the 90-day bid inspections. And
okay.
that form is really useful because not only does it document the whole year, but it's very straightforward, and the mechanic or whoever does their service documents the mileage, the date, and we can use 2 sheets or 3 sheets in reality to cover the 2-year, the 24-month period. So I would strongly recommend doing it in that way.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's go to, let's do Luis Hidalgo. Go ahead. Luis, you there?
Luis is still muted.
Let's try again. Luis? Hello, Luis?
Should be fine now.
Okay. A few more seconds. Luis, you there? No?
Luis, go ahead.
Okay, we'll get back to Luis. Let's go to the 919 phone call number. Go ahead.
Ash, this is Erica with Aero Truck Sales once again. In regards to the existing truck registration, some customers run with what we call a partial registration. They register every 3 months, every monthly per se. You're asking for the previous 24 months. You know, as we see COVID-19 and DMV closures, is there going to be any type of leeway if we see any missed dates in that registration period?
You know, that's a really good question. We can definitely ask ARB about that. I know the goal is to ensure 24 months of continuous operation, and most trucking entities are from what I understand, are considered essential because they're delivering goods and you know, they've been in operation. But I would be happy to look at a specific scenario that you have, and we can ask ARB's guidance once you submit the application.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, there we go. Okay, let's try here. Jim, you have another question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Do you have copies of approved contracts online we can look at as far as where the dealers entered the rebate amount, the incentive amount on the contracts, making them, disclosing them to you?
We don't have, no, we don't have it on approved samples, but you would just include that in your invoice, in your personal dealer invoice. You would put in a section saying, you know, a lot of people do this way. They say deposit, and then they put the voucher amount, and they either type in the words VIP voucher has to be in the invoice, whether it's right under the section where it shows the deduction or on a side where they put in the description of the replacement truck. But there has to be a comment saying deposit reflects voucher amount, and then put the total amount. And however way you want to do that, we're not too particular on how it's done, as long as it's there and it shows the deduction, so it's clear that the applicant is getting the full voucher amount as a discount.
And that's a post-tax deduction, not a pre-tax deduction?
Correct. Well, actually, let's see. That's a good question. I believe it's a, let's see. Well, we're now.
That has a lot to do. That has a lot to do with the DMV fees, everything.
Yeah. I believe it's a post-tax deduction because everything is deduct. I mean, the voucher doesn't ever pay for the full truck price. So, but no, sales tax has to be there. So it'd be after the sales tax is added.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Okay, let's see here. Let's try, Matt, go ahead.
Hi guys, Matt with Velocity Truck Centers. On the new provisions for the dealer reimbursement package, understanding the challenges that you guys are facing, but I can say, and I would imagine that pretty much everybody on the phone would agree with me, it's very difficult for us, especially a small single truck owner operator, to not have his truck for a whole week or however much longer it takes for you guys to cut a check back to us after we've scrapped it. So, I mean, on the one hand, is there an opportunity for maybe a direct deposit setup? I know you guys do direct deposits on for other payments and stuff, or ACH rather. And then also it seems like that perhaps there is a middle ground, because it could in fact be the deal killer. I mean, it's difficult for, like I said, it's just difficult for a guy to walk away from his main source of revenue for up to 2 weeks sometimes, depending on how long all the process takes. So 2 questions: is there a possibility for ACH, and is there any flexibility that you guys might envision in having, I guess, compressing that timeline from when we turn in the reimbursement package to when we actually get the check?
I'd have to think about it, because that's a good question, and I totally understand the need for the truck to be operating as long as it possibly can. We're just trying to avoid having the need to come in person, obviously, and so and depending on where we are in terms of safety measures in the coming months, that might be more flexible, and it might be an option where you can email it maybe the week that you know that the check is going to be issued, and we could consider that option.
Okay, I mean, that would be helpful, just anything, because obviously you guys are closed on Mondays. You only cut checks on Wednesdays or whatever, write checks on Wednesdays and cut and send them on Thursdays. So the timeline is small, but if something like that could happen, if we knew, okay, this week we're going to send it to the dismantler, you guys give us some, the email address or what have you, and some sort of confirmation that it's actually been sent. If there is a way, like I said, however we can to compress that timeline, it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge there is we don't want to send out a check for an old truck that hasn't been delivered to the dismantler. And we'd have to think of a way, if it can't be included in the dealer reimbursement package, to ensure that, because ARB is very specific to make sure that we don't have the old truck and the new truck both operational when we
Of course. But it seems like you could set something up where you could have the check cut because of the timelines it takes for you guys. But as we do it before, again, the check would be essentially ready to go. And as long as you guys receive the email, then you can effectively just mail it out right away. So maybe there's a step to say, okay, we'll get the check generated like we do before. But then, if you can create some protocol so we can send the email that same week, maybe that might help.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'll look into that and provide it as a more feasible solution. I think there's a lot of even with the internally we have to do everything through e-invoicing, so it's not like we have paperwork that we're going through. So that might actually add a layer of time delay as well. So I'll look into it and touch
Okay, great. Thank you. And that and maybe on the ACH thing too, that might be helpful. And if that's a pathway, just to skip the paper generation altogether.
Okay. Yeah. The only problem with that is ARB requires us to have a copy of the check in the project file. So that's why we have to issue the check. So
old school. All right. Thanks.
Yes, but we'll look into it. Thanks, Matt. Okay, let's see here. Let's see if Luis is still available here. Let's see. Luis, you still there? No, I don't think so. So, okay. All right, we can move on to the next slide then. So slide 33, please. Great. Okay, so that was the dealership training requirements, but I still encourage you to stay on. Please don't hang up yet, because I want to go over the dismantler requirements, which is relatively shorter. And so if we can go to slide 34, please. Okay, next bullet. Okay, so there are several basic qualifications to be a participating dismantler. You have to be licensed by the DMV as a dismantler. Next bullet. You have to have a valid California business license for a minimum of the last 2 years. Next bullet. And you have to have a current and valid California Environmental Protection Agency hazardous materials generators permit. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, next bullet. And you also have to certify that you're in compliance with all local, state, and federal laws and regulations. Slide 35, please. Okay, bullet 1. Okay, so air quality benefits require that the old trucks are permanently removed from operation. So this means that, next bullet. Okay, and then go ahead and click 2 more times, or just once, thank you. So this means that within 60 days of receipt, the dismantlers have to permanently destroy the truck, and you have to do, what you have to do is both frame rails must be completely severed between the front and rear axles. You have to puncture an engine block with a minimum 3-inch hole that's irregularly shaped. So it can't be a perfect square or perfect rectangle. It has to be irregularly shaped. And section of the oil pan flange must be removed as part of the hole or have a line cut through it that connects the hole. Okay, next slide, please. Slide 36. Okay, so the dismantler must notify South Coast AQMD that the vehicle has been destroyed and is ready for inspection. Next bullet. Provide documentation to South Coast AQMD that the old vehicle is registered with DMV as non-repairable with transaction code L10 or C26. Next bullet. And provide a copy of this file notice to South Coast AQMD at the post-dismantle inspection. Now, in addition to the L10 form that you fill out with the Reg 42, there's a form called the DMV reconciliation form, which is basically the receipt from DMV validating that the vehicle has been registered as L10. And it's basically the confirmation that dismantlers get from the DMV. You will need to provide that along with the documentation for the post-dismantle inspection to the inspectors. Next slide, please. Or I'm sorry, next bullet. Okay, so again, like I said earlier, you need to provide this verification from the DMV that it has been registered through by providing a copy of the Reg 42 and the reconciliation report. Next slide, 37. Okay, so as with everything else that we've been talking about, we've had to change the measures for COVID-19 for the VIP program. So in the past, when we've funded a voucher, we put in a request for inspectors to go on and conduct the post-dismantle inspection, which is the final inspection in the VIP program, where the inspectors go out and verify that the vehicle has been destroyed, in fact. So the California Air Resources Board has authorized us to conduct remote inspections for all of our incentive programs, including the VIP. So as a result of the COVID-19 safety measures that we've implemented, we're asking that the dismantlers will need to conduct a post-dismantle inspection that's outlined in the VIP guidelines by filling out the inspection form and taking the required photos. Again, the same inspection form that I was explaining to the dealers, it also applies to the dismantlers, except you would check on the box that says post-dismantle. And what the process will be is South Coast AQMD inspectors will contact the dismantlers and provide the inspection instructions and the required paperwork. Once you've completed that, then the inspectors will review the paperwork and verify that the destruction has been satisfied. And the dismantlers will need to make sure that the post-dismantle inspection has been reviewed and approved by South Coast AQMD inspector before removing the truck from your facility. Okay, any questions about that from the dismantlers? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Ash, can you hear me? This is June Mendez with LKQ Pick Your Part.
Hi.
Yeah, just on your slide 5, number 5, it's indicated that the dealer should deliver the truck to the dismantler. And then slide 33 says that the truck could be picked up by the dismantler from the dealership.
Yeah.
And then slide 31 says you could do both. Now, either pick up or deliver.
Yeah, it's an either or option.
Okay, so what's the responsibility as far as functionality of the truck, the old truck?
What's the responsibility? Well, I mean,
what's the functionality? I mean, do we have to do a functionality test? Do we have to confirm that the truck is worthy, or we just accept it as it is?
Well, it can't be towed to your dismantler yard. That's our point. It has to be driven on its own power to your yard. So whether you guys go pick it up or the dealer delivers it, either way, it needs to ensure that it's operational when you're getting it. So when you're accepting the truck from the dealer, it can't be accepted from the applicant. It has to be the dealer because the applicant surrenders the old truck to the dealership. So when you guys are accepting that along with the title that's signed off, you know, it needs, the dismantler needs to ensure that it was operational when they got it.
Okay, so when we're picking up from the dealership, we have to do a functionality test?
I don't know what you mean by a functionality
Oh,
test.
no, we have to, well, if we're going to pick it up from the dealership, we have to make sure that the truck is roadworthy, it runs, moves forward, backwards, I mean, it starts and restarts.
Well, how else would it be? You'd need to turn it on to drive it to the dismantler, no?
Yeah, if we're going to pick it up from the dismantler, then we have to make sure that the truck is still roadworthy and functioning properly, right?
Correct.
So before we load it to our truck, I mean, we have to do those tests.
Right.
Or the dealership does it for us.
Well, I mean, the dealership verifies its roadworthiness at the pre-dismantle inspection. That's their responsibility. And when the dismantler gets it, basically, you know, you're verifying that you're not doing the pre-dismantle inspection. The dealer does that. So they've already verified it's in the same condition as they saw it the first time and that it was operational, and they're signing and certifying that. And they're calling you or bringing the truck to you. And, you know, basically the red flag is it shouldn't be towed to you guys as long as it's operational and it was driven to you by the dealer or you sent a representative to go pick it up. As long as it's been verified that it's operational and everything's fine, then that satisfies that requirement, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, that's why we always prefer that the truck is driven to our location than us picking it up.
Yeah, and that's the dismantler's choice. I mean, we're not saying you have to go pick it up or it's driven to you. It's whatever, you know, whatever arrangement you have with the dealership, that's between you guys. We just want to make sure it's not being towed or it's coming in pieces.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Good to hear from you. Okay, Freddie, go ahead.
Hi, Ash.
Hi.
This is Freddie Sanchez with Japanese Unique Trucks. Just my question is, so now we need to do the paperwork on the trucks once they're destroyed, like if there were Prop 1Bs?
Similar to that, but it's different forms. And once you get one, our inspectors will reach out to you and provide you the form and instructions. But the process is relatively similar to Prop 1B, except there's different photos to take. But, you know, you could say it mirrors Prop 1B, but there are other photos that are required as well and the documentation.
Okay, just double checking. Okay, that's it. That's my question.
Yeah, and if you have any questions on the first one or you need any help, you can either call me or the inspector that sends you the information. We'd be happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so let's see here. Or wait. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Which is 38. Okay, so we're at the questions and comments and we can go to the final slide, 39. Okay, so that's my contact information and Cynthia's and the truckers database and regulation inquiries hotline, which is available if you're the applicant or the dealers have any questions about the truck and bus regulation. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Okay. Freddie, you had another question?
No, that's, let me lower my hand.
I'm sorry, I got it, okay.
Okay.
Jim, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. I had two of them. Number one, is there a posted list of authorized dismantlers that meet all your criteria that we dealers can look at online, find it?
Yes, it's on
Okay.
our website. It's www.aqmd.gov/VIP. When you send me your email with the other questions that you had, I'll add that as the link too.
Okay, cool. Next question is, on your slide 15 and 16, slide 15 was the HHD mileage requirement, and 16 was the MHD mileage requirement.
Okay.
There's nothing for the light LHD. Is there a mileage requirement for the LHD, the 14,000
Yes.
to 19?
There is. Our most common applications that we've gotten over the years were medium and heavy, but there's a table here. Let me look at the guidelines real quick.
I didn't see it on the slides.
No, I didn't include an example because it mirrors in terms of process and requirements. It's just a different numbers, but.
Okay. And then on a second question, and I'll look for that. On a second question, when you look up the IFTA requirements, what are the requirements? There's three of them that they pop up. Is the 3-axle vehicle have 2 axles, a gross vehicle weight or registered gross vehicle weight of more than 26,000 pounds, or are used in combination that has a combined registered gross vehicle weight of 26,000. The LHD vehicles of 14, to 19,000 to 25,000 pounds, they don't require that IFTA. Yet you're asking for that in your list of documents on page 22. No, on page 22 that you're asking for that documentation. How are we, our light duty dealers like myself, what are we going to do for that?
So the IFTA requirements only applies if that applicant or that truck is going out of state.
Okay.
So if most of the lighter heavy duty trucks, I don't know if they're interstate operation. They're usually local drivers, right?
Right, correct.
Well, that would not be a requirement for you.
I'm just looking at the slide 22 of your examples of documentation required in the application.
Yeah, that's only if they, okay, so that is just a subset of what I was talking about for verifying 75% California operation.
Okay.
So if your applicant is California only registered, then you've already satisfied demonstrating that.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
No problem. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Oh, all right, one more. Look, it's Mari.
Hi, how are you guys doing? I
can't hear you. Can you do a little louder, please?
I've had a couple customers call me and ask if AQMD.
I can't hear you, it's Mari.
My speaker.
Hello? Yeah, we can't hear you.
I can't hear you. I'm at 100%. Hold on. I am muted.
I think there might be a, you're welcome to call me later if you want. I can answer your question if you like. Okay? Or email me. All right. All right. Final call. Any other questions? Last call? No? Okay. So I want to thank all of you for attending, and I appreciate all the questions. And if there's any follow-up questions that you have, we're welcome to email me or Cynthia Ravenstein, and look forward to working with you guys. And the VIP program isn't open yet. We're still waiting for some final guidance on CARB on some things before we post the current application. But we just wanted to have this workshop and inform everybody about the plus up option so that once we're ready to open, it'll be available. I will send a general email to everybody that attended so that once the website's updated. Also, if you're a new dealer or dismantler that wishes to participate after completing this training, go ahead and send me an email that you do want to sign up and be a VIP dealer or dismantler. And there's specific paperwork that we're going to need to collect from you so that we can initiate the contract process. Once that contract has been fully executed, then you can be a participating dealer or dismounter. Okay. I thank everybody for everyone's time and patience, and I guess we can call it a VIP workshop is officially over. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, for your help.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.